So I just want to say thanks for all you do. I know we don't get told this enough from the stakeholders in these games, but it is appreciated what you do. It doesn't feel like it sometimes, but the fans appreciate you, the players appreciate you, some coaches appreciate you, the band appreciates you, the cheerleaders appreciate what we do. So just a big and overdue thank you to all you guys for what you do. I know it's tough because it doesn't feel like it sometimes, but there is a lot of appreciation out there. We just finished an Officials Appreciation Week. So it is appreciated with what you guys do for the athletics. All right, so because you're attended, you will improve as an official. We're all here to get better. As BK likes to say, we're not here for beer and chicken wings. Can't have those virtually through a computer screen. So we are here to improve in what we do. And if we improve, we're going to serve the game better. And by attending this meeting, we'll be better prepared and ready for odd situations, like kicking a chair, double technical fouls, weird plays where they hand the ball off, the inbounder hands off to the person in bounds. You'll be a better play caller. You will be better at communicating with players and coaches. You'll be best positioned to make the call because a lot of times Cade in his videos, us with our clips, we do like to talk about the position of the officials on the call. You're going to be a great partner. I know our guest tonight is Jeff Cross, and Jeff had a great episode on his podcast about being a great partner. I think Brian's also talked about it as well. All right, so if February of basketball season had a picture, I think this is what it would look like. I think this is a favorite meme of mine because it's just like this dude is stressed out to the max. All right, so this is a February basketball had a picture right here, but we're going to overcome that. So we're going to finish our regular season strong. And how are we going to do that? The coaches are tired, stressed, and under pressure. We see it. I just had a team last night, Northland Pines, Eagle River, whatever you want to call them. They're 2-18 or 19 now because they lost. The coaches were stressed. The girls were stressed. The parents were yelling weird things out, like at the end of the game, like put the starters back in. And it's just like, oh my goodness. Everyone's just under a lot of pressure at this point in the long season. The players, they're tired, they're stressed, they're under pressure. We had a girl last night get 3 player control fouls against her for the losing team. And she was really stressed about that and had this same thing happen in November. I'm not saying it's different, but February basketball and March basketball is way different than November and December basketball. The fans and the parents, they're tired, they're stressed, they're not really under pressure. Maybe they are, but they're fanatic for sure. They've driven to these basketball games. They've attended all the games. They've driven their kids to and from the practices. They're stressed. This is a long season for them as well. So, and by no means, guys, am I saying that we're making excuses for anything that these people are doing, but I do think we have to be empathetic and put ourselves in their shoes for what they're going through with their season as well. The stakes are high this time of year, whether that's for a conference championship, playoff seeding, or the playoff game itself. The stakes this time of year are super high, so that, the missed travel you have, maybe the misapplication of a rule, the stakes are just too high right now for those sorts of things. But we're up for the challenge, right? That's why we're attending these meetings. We're going to make ourselves as best prepared as we can to succeed in these situations. We're going to trust the system. We're going to trust your partners, and we're going to trust yourself. So you have to trust that everything that you've done this season has prepared you for this moment, and that your partners are ready for this moment, and the 3-person mechanic system is ready for this moment. We just need a lot of trust in what we've been doing all season long. I'm I don't know if you guys saw the NFL game with the one with the officiating was not good. Chiefs Bengals, right? That was, the all-star crew gets put on a game and they were not meshing well and not trusting your partners. And they were just having a rough go of it. We're going to hustle for open looks. Okay. Our legs are tired. But we're still going to be hustling on that court and getting the best angle we can to make the best judgment call that we can. All right, we're going to be understanding. We're going to be empathetic. We're going to be proactive. However, sportsmanship is still the number one point of emphasis. The number one reason people are leaving officiating, sportsmanship. And it is, again, the number one point of emphasis this year. So even though we're going to be understanding, we're going to be empathetic, we are still going to enforce sportsmanship as the number one point of emphasis. Does anyone have any comments on any of these things on the screen right now? Comments, pro or con? BK, what do you think?
Did we talk, Ben, did you get a chance to talk about the Paul Diaspora webinar next week?
Not
Did
yet.
you mention that at all? Okay.
Not yet. But
And then
his stuff's gold. I've listened to 3 podcasts since day one.
Yeah, we're pretty lucky that we were able to get a partnership with him and collaborate with 2 other officials associations for that. So that's going to be a really good webinar and very timing. The timing of it couldn't be better because it comes when, like Ben's been saying, the people are more stressed out and
we got to be our best.
We have to be at our best. That's right. And I think that's really what we're all trying to do.
Yep. To steal from Jeff Cross, we have to be uncommon, right? With our approach in this time of year, we're going to make the courageous call. We're going to make the correct call, even if it's not the most popular call. All right. So a big congratulations goes out to anyone that earned a playoff assignment or was eligible to receive a playoff assignment. Well done. I don't know what happened down by you guys down in the southern area, but up here, we've had crews get split up for regionals. In fact, it used to be the case just for sectionals, crews were split up, but now we're working with random people, even in the regional level. Is that what you guys saw down by you?
A little bit.
For regionals as well?
We didn't really focus too much on that. We were more excited that it seemed like a lot of our membership got
for sure
your first regional finals or your first chance to work a sectional. So that was super exciting to hear that.
Yeah, for sure.
That was nice.
So that was a change. That's all I'm saying is that was a change from last year. Like regional crews were a crew all the way through regionals, but now we're being split up for regionals. That's different. So we're talking like Jim Mora video from years ago, playoffs. All right. So congratulations go out to anyone that received a playoff assignment. That's amazing. That's cool. Treat it as such, even if it's a terrible matchup of a 8-1 or whatever, right? There are giant upsets every year. So we're going to ref every game like it's a state final. So pregame is very essential to your success. Like I said, we might be working with different guys than your usual crew. So you want to pregame, make sure we're on the same page. You want to call the obvious. You don't want to get cute in the playoffs. If it's a marginal travel, maybe let it go. Don't guess at fouls. Oh, something weird happened, but I couldn't see it. Call what you can see. Call the big stuff. Rotate to get good looks. Again, I don't know. I guess I officiate up north here, and I've been on crews, and they're like, "We're not rotating tonight." Well, my first comment back is, "Yes, we are," because they're paying 3 officials to get 3 good looks at the play, or get looks at the court. You're 1/3 of the court, so we want to rotate to get good looks at the play and give the kids our best. We're going to use proper mechanics. So if the mechanic on the player control foul is the long switch, we're going to long switch. Okay, if the mechanic is on a rebounding foul to long switch, we're going to do the long switch on a rebounding foul. There's reasoning behind all of that. So we wanted to have good mechanics in this crunch time of the season. If something weird happens, we're going to get together. We're going to get the teams to their benches, meet at the center circle, and no hand talking. That no hand talking is mostly in there for me because I'm a hand talker. So when we get together at the center circle and to say, what do we have going on here? So for instance, we had a big matchup with Shawano Xavier boys, and almost a conference deciding game, or definitely close to it. And in a dead ball situation, the Shawano big guy, the best guy probably, or one of the best guys, got very marginal contact in the dead ball situation, and he went flying like an NBA player flopping, trying to win an Oscar. Well, his buddy didn't know that he was acting. He thought he actually was pushed to the ground, which he definitely was not. So he chested up the guy that did that contact, chested him up. They chested up, pushing, shoving, talking, jaw jacking. So that was a quick do, and get in there in between them, double technical fouls, easy call. But what we did is I got in there. One of the other officials that was on the game got in there, and the other official kind of stood back and watched. You want to pregame that. So if something weird were to happen, we do need some interveners, but we also need someone with a wide angle view of things. Because if someone comes off the bench, now we have to adjudicate that. So that's just something to pregame. So what we did is we got the kids to their benches. I made sure that one official reported his foul that he had that caused the dead ball. And then I issued a double technical foul. We made sure the table was aware of how that affected the team foul count. And we proceeded with the game. Obviously, after both coaches adamantly disagreed with they said the other guy started it, yada, yada, yada. But we moved on. All right, so you were selected to this playoff game for a reason. You're going to be that reason. And it might not even be a playoff game, right? It could be a conference deciding game. So you're on that game for a reason. BK was just talking that some other officials got moved off a game onto another game, right? That's probably for a reason. So be the reason that you were put on that game. We have a strong first whistle on these games. We don't want a weak call as our first call. We want our first call to be a strong first whistle. And we're going to have fun and enjoy the game. If you're not having fun doing this, guys, you need to A, get on a different crew, or B, approach it differently, because reffing basketball is a shitload of fun. Okay. And it's a privilege, and we should treat it as such. Does anyone have anything to add to playoff assignments or anything like this? Or any comments on any of the items on the screen?
Ben, do you mind if I say something?
Heck yeah, Jeff. Jump in, buddy.
So when you were talking about your situation, when you had a common foul, you started to talk about no hand talking, and then you said you had a common foul, then you had the double technical foul. Now I don't know, I may be going way off base here on mechanics, but you said that you had the one person go report their common foul, and then you went and reported your two technical fouls. Is that what I heard?
I wanted to make sure that he reported his foul because I didn't see it because I was breaking this up. I just wanted to, so we got together. We're like, okay, I just want to make sure he reported his foul with his number, and I had my numbers for my double T. Correct. Yeah.
And we've all been in those situations. I think sometimes, for the betterment of the scorers table, if we can send one person over there, and I always say anytime we get an atypical situation, someone should be leaning over the table having a conversation with the scorekeeper. We don't want to try and do atypical communication from a distance, right? Correct. So we want to be leaning over the table, and if we can send the least amount of people over there, the better off we are. So if you're like, hey, I got a double technical, you got a common foul on 14, whoever that is, maybe they can just go over there and say, okay, we're going to walk through this for you. This is what we have. Common foul, 14 white. You got that? Yep, I got that. Okay, now we have double technicals, 2 white, 4 blue. And then these are where the fouls go, and you're doing all that just in a normal conversation. Because, and I see it, when I work the table at our local high school, I see officials try and communicate these atypical situations from 20 feet away in the reporting area. And I think that is good, but that's when something gets lost, and it can come back to bite you in the last 30 seconds of the fourth quarter when you didn't say that's part of a team foul or something. So just my own little input
Yeah,
there.
for sure. Like a correct, you're trying to avoid a correctable error situation, right? Like, oh, the team
Yeah,
foul
absolutely.
one lower than we thought they were because they
Mhm.
didn't give it yeah. So for sure on that. So yeah, so we reported the foul, but then yeah, we got to the table, talked with the lady, made sure she had the team foul count right. Then after that was done, a very brief conversation with both coaches. Like, coach,
Mhm.
just so you know, we have a technical foul on your player. It's their first one. This is why, not even this is why, they all know it was why, because they were all
Sure.
jacking and stuff like that. Does not need to be a long conversation. The Xavier coach wanted to increase the length of that conversation, and I just said, hey, this is not up for debate. Unfortunately, we got to keep the game moving, and we're going to go on.
Yeah. Well, the phrase I like to use is the decision's been made on this play.
Yeah.
You know, it may not be up for debate. I mean, you may want to debate it, but we've already made a decision. So here we go.
Yeah. And how
Very
often have
good.
you ever seen a referee reverse course on his decision?
No. Well, not in work the next day anyway.
Yeah. Does anyone else have anything to add about, WIA playoff assignment, what we could do to be successful? Jump in the call, guys. Alex?
Hey, oh God.
Oh, go ahead.
Hey, so just back on your double technical and your common foul. So say the team fouls are 5, your common foul puts it at 6, your technical puts it at 7. Do you shoot free throws for the bonus free throw for the common?
Yeah, so it was in the order of occurrence, right? Is how high school works. So you wouldn't, the sixth foul would not be considered a bonus situation at that point. And then after that common foul was a technical foul to put you at 7. Yeah, but correct. You would not shoot that. Correct. Yeah, Preston.
I just figured that was something good to discuss quick.
You know what else is good to discuss? How huddle cameras suck because it did not catch any of this action because that wasn't where the ball was. Because I wanted, the AD at halftime, this first half, the AD came into the locker room. He's like, you guys handled that really, really well. Both kids were out of line. Yeah, and the Shano kid flopped. He even admitted that. But it's like, okay, I want to see this video because like we did a really good job, and I want to show everybody that we did a good job, and talk about it. And the huddle camera sat at half court, and there it sat. So sucks. Alex, you got anything for us? Barman?
No, you got it all. You hit the nails on the head.
All right, buddy.
Ben, I got a question.
You bet.
You got me? This is Larry Knoll.
Hey, Larry.
Looking at, great meeting, by the way, thanks. Looking at the best pregame captains meeting. I hear lots of different ones. We're all a little bit different twist to it. Sportsmanship is usually part of it. What is the most effective pregame, quick, short and sweet pregame meeting for the captains to hear so they get the right impression that these officials are ready to go, they're on the game, and again, it's short and sweet, but it's to the point, and it gets both teams focused in on knowing that these guys are ready to go. That was a great meeting, even though it wasn't very long.
I would say similar to what the one I just had at that Shano Xavier game, because it's such a big game for the conference championship. I told them, boys, we are very aware that this is a big game for you tonight. It's a big game for us as well. We're going to bust our butts out here to get the best look at every single play for you. And then obviously talking about sportsmanship, and then we went on with our day. But like, just I don't think it's a bad thing to tell them that we know the stakes of this game, because that's being honest and transparent. And then to tell them that we understand it, we appreciate it, and that we're going to bust our ass for you tonight without saying the word ass.
I'm going to just say something totally different than that, because I stay away from that. Because every game is a big game. You want to make sure that you check the jerseys. So when you ask for your speaking captain, make sure you ask them to pull up their shirt so you can see the color of their jersey. And then now you know the dominant color. And then you can put some onus on the captains to say, I'm assuming that if you're wearing t-shirts or any material underneath this jersey, that they're all the same color as that uniform, correct? Thank you. And do the same with the other captain. Say, if we're talking to you, it's a really good idea to listen. And we'll do our best to listen to you. I don't go in any detail about the magnitude of a game or because I could care less. We're not there to officiate magnitude. We're there to be good play callers and be good communicators with each other and manage the game. So
Mhm.
the magnitude of the game means nothing to me personally.
Okay.
It's really just making sure that the captains know that you have a job to do. And part of that job is to get stuff right before you even start reffing, which is the jerseys. And that's our job, whether we like it or not. Headbands, t-shirts, knee sleeves, what they wear underneath their shorts, long sleeves on one side, short sleeves on the other. We saw the other day, a guy had a long sleeve shirt on one side. I think Mike Murphy was telling me about this. We worked last night and then he had the other side completely cut off. It's like, dude, you can't do that. It violates the uniform rules. And
Steph Curry wore that the other day. That's probably where they're getting it from.
probably, but like stuff like that, you know, just tell them
Do you always ask for the speaking captain, Brian?
always.
Okay.
Yep. I always do.
How important is it to introduce yourselves as far as your first name? Do they need to know your first name? Some officials do, some don't. I don't know that it's even relevant because they're not going to call you by that. But I know sometimes we go through pre-games and say, hi, I'm Larry. I'm working with so-and-so and so-and-so. Is that necessary?
When you introduce yourself to them, Larry, when you fist bump them or handshake them, do you say hi? When they say, hey, I'm Jerry, do you say, hey, I'm Larry?
I have done both. I've listened to other officials and then we had the conversation. Is it really important that they know your name? Because they're not addressing you by that anyway. I don't know that that's an important fact for them to know before the game that your first name is Larry and the other guys you're working with are Steve and Mike. Or am I wrong on that?
I would say that they're not going to remember anyway. I met 7 girls last night at the captain's meeting. I couldn't tell you one of their names. So if I said
Relevant.
yeah, I just say good luck tonight. You know, when they say, hey, I'm Susie. All right, good
Less
luck.
is less is more in a captain's meeting.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Less is more.
I say again, that speaking captain though is super important, especially, and I know BK, they're all big games, but in any game then, to really know who's in charge. Because we have 4 from each team, let's say, four starters from each team coming to the center circle. We need to know who's really in charge on this court. So that when I have that double technical situation, who am I going to go to and say, hey, we have a great game going here. I need you to control your team.
Yeah.
You know, because if one of those, the Xavier kid was one of the captains in the meeting. Is he really who's in charge, or who's really in charge? Who's the team leader? I know it's kind of an old school thing up here. Everyone kind of, you know, like when you say who your speaking captain is, it's kind of like considered old school up in this part. But I think it's important so that we know who to go to in a high need situation.
Good stuff. Thanks, guys.
All right, so we got some big things. This was on Paul's last podcast with the VP of officials in the replay center. He says there's 4 things he says before every tip off. He says you stay in your primary and you own your primary. He says you call the obvious. You referee the defender. It's the least exciting thing to do on a basketball court. So now look at the ball handler, but you got to referee the defender, and you never guess. If you do these 4 things every game, you're going to be highly successful in what you do. Does anyone have anything they would add to this list? BK, got anything? Some staples for having a successful experience?
I'd say
Communication.
call points of emphasis and no RSBQ and possession consequence, especially on rebounding plays. I mean, possession consequence is just such an important thing to talk about.
So you want to elaborate on that for someone maybe that doesn't know what that means?
So like, for example, we had a play last night where we called the rebounding. I called the rebounding foul and there was contact by the defender. He played through a offensive player's back and dislodged the ball. And if I was more patient, I would have noticed that the right team ended up getting the ball and they were going to advance it up the floor. So that game interrupter foul didn't need to happen. It did not affect possession consequence. So now had the wrong team got the ball or had it caused the ball to go out of bounds, and now we're going to give the ball back to the team that just fouled, maybe then I adjudicate a foul on that particular scenario because it impacted possession consequence. It's something that has to be discussed.
I'm glad
'Cause we don't want to live in the world of marginal. Marginal calls don't usually get us accolades. Marginal calls are, if we make a marginal call, there's a chance we'll make another one. So we have to talk about not being in the world of marginal. And I think that goes along with Paul's, don't guess. Know the consequence of what happened and how it impacted the actual play in that moment.
A lot of the clips that I clip in all of our games, a lot of the titles are need to be more patient here. Can we let this play out first? Can we let this play out more? Right? Yeah, that's a foul. Okay, but did it affect the play? Kind of like, I don't do football, but you hear it all the time on the broadcast. They call holding away from where the run was going. They train you not to do that, correct? Right? Because it didn't affect the play. So I was just looking for some. I got a lot of clips about that, but it's not a clip meeting. So, all right, and then you guys, I hate to say it like this, but refereeing basketball is like, I don't know, it's like what you do with your wife, maybe, right? If you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong. So just make sure you're having fun out there and enjoying the game. Everyone can see you enjoying the game. You call a better game when you're enjoying the game. If you get hung up on, man, like how we were just talking about, I called a rebounding foul, but the right team got the ball and you're going through that in your head. If you play that over and over in your brain, you're gonna make another mistake. Okay. So you got to shake it off and have the next play mentality and have fun while you're out there. All right, with no further ado, we'd like to welcome a big WROA welcome to Jeff Cross. Jeff, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and
get those pictures off of there, bro.
What are you talking about?
That was good stuff. I never went. I gotta keep a close eye on you. I didn't send those pictures to you, man.
Hey, we're Facebook friends.
That's right.
Fair game.
That's right. I'm just messing.
So Jeff, for those that don't know you, who is Jeff Cross? Nothing about officiating though. Just who is Jeff Cross?
Yeah, I am most definitely a husband of 30 years, actually going to be 31 years coming up on the 22nd of February. I have 2 kids. Both of them are in their 20s, or what I like to say, my daughter is married for a couple of years, and my son is a diesel mechanic living on his own in his own place too. So I often joke that they're off my payroll. So I'm a big fan of that. They still call for advice and advice, and I typically don't tell them what they want to hear, but they are very much close to. We're a close family. We're a small family, just the 2 of us. I think if I had to share one thing with you, just that people probably don't understand, people don't know about me, is about 20 years ago, I was still umpiring baseball. I wasn't an umpire. I think I was refereeing basketball, but just in a beginner stage, we'll call it. And I had neck surgery done. I have 2 plates and 8 screws in my neck. And the doctors told me after that surgery, which turned out to be successful, actually the second surgery, first surgery was just 1 disc. The second surgery was above and below that bad first disc. So ended up with 8 screws, 2 plates. Pretty much told me to go fill out your disability. You're never going to be able to work again. You are done as far as anything remotely physical would be involved. And then here I am. you know, so here I am, proving them wrong. So if I had to spread any message, I mean, like, don't believe anything anybody tells you. Just don't do it. Believe what you tell yourself, and you'll find yourself in much better circumstances.
Now, do you want to talk? I know you and your wife have quite the TikTok channel. Do you want to talk about your relationship with her and how fun it is?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. So when you say me and my wife have a TikTok channel, it's if you guys saw the back half of that, it's really me spending 90 minutes convincing her to do a 15-second TikTok. So it's usually 90 minutes of arguing, and then maybe she gets a glass of wine in her or two. She's like, okay, fine, let's do it. Can we go home and go to bed after this or whatever? So yeah, it's a lot of fun. My wife has a great saying when it comes to that, because the very first one that I did, she obviously she fought it, and she had was reading an article, and she was reading an article about 3 or 4 ladies that were going for a walk, and they were talking about, I got to go home and cook supper for my husband, and all these things, and one of the women that were going on a walk had lost her husband about 6 months ago, prior to that walk, and she just looked at all of them and said, instead of complaining, go cook cook your husband supper. That's what he wants, because you'll miss that. And she often jokes that that's my dinner, right? That's my cooking my dinner. If he wants to do it, and he's gonna, that's gonna be a great memory that she's gonna have, and we're gonna have together. So that's why we continue to do it.
That's awesome. That is,
Yeah.
I mean, and we all know that behind every successful referee is a very understanding spouse. Right?
Yeah.
So
Truth.
that's very important. So you already talked a little bit about how you got your start in officiating, but you started in baseball. So that lit the fire. How did you get into baseball? How did you pick up basketball? And what lit the fire for you?
Yeah. Well, I went when I was a baseball player. So a couple of interesting facts. I'm going to give you all the unknown facts about Jeff Cross. I've never played basketball above the 6th grade level. So I'm not a basketball player. I'm a wrestler. That's what I did during basketball season. And my number one sport was baseball. So I began umpiring baseball at a young age, like I was 13 or 14, didn't have a driver's license, rode my bike to the ballpark, called the little kid games, and hoped it didn't rain. So I did that. And then after years of, whatever, until I became a senior in high school, and everybody said, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to go to professional umpire school. It took me a few years to basically get the money to do that. It was just before my wife and I got married. I went to umpire school in '92 and didn't make it. Obviously, here I am. But I gave it a pretty good go, had a pretty good showing, went back and just umpired baseball, and in one baseball game. This is how it all starts, I believe, with a lot of people. And I think most of the people on this call would probably agree. The reason I started basketball, because I was umpiring a baseball game with the basketball referee, and they said I should try basketball. That's how it works. A football referee that is on a crew with a bunch of football referees and one basketball referee, that one basketball referee goes, you should really try basketball. And I fought it for a while, but I came home and told my wife, I said, I'm gonna start refereeing basketball. And her response was literally, what do you know about basketball?
I don't have
and that was just how it all started. And I mean, I literally spent probably 2 days worrying about what mechanic I was supposed to use.
Son of a gun. I muted you. Hold on, Jeff. Hold on. Unmute yourself. Guys, we have someone talking in the background. Oh, who is this?
There we go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jeff.
So that's all right. So I spent most of my 3 or 4 days before my first ever 6th grade game worrying about the signal for 3 seconds. That's what I was worried about. And come to find out, I spent the first 10 years of my career not even calling 3 seconds. But I was really worried about it. But that's how it all started.
How long were you doing baseball before you picked up basketball?
Well, if you count those young years at 12 and 13 years old, I was probably doing baseball in some way, shape, or form for 15 years or so.
Before you even picked up a basketball whistle, huh?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yep. Yeah, I started refereeing high school basketball. I want to say it's right around 30 years ago. So
So what
yeah,
age
so
does
right
that
around.
put you at?
So I'm 54. I'll be 55 in September.
Okay.
So yeah, so I was
24?
30 years old. Yeah, 24, 25. And then it's just kind of, I remember when I started doing college basketball after going to many camps in the Division 3 level and the JUCO camps. My very first ever Division 1 camp, I got hired Division 2, didn't get hired Division 1. The second year I went, I got hired Division 1, and I'm not a big goal person. I don't really like to set goals anymore. But I told my friends, I said I would really like to be able to be hired in the Big Ten by the time I'm 40, and I got hired in the Big Ten at 38. So
Nice,
yeah, so I made it.
nice. I think we all can relate to that. Like, usually someone just asks you like, hey, do you want to ref, or hey, do you want to do this? And you're like, find out you love it. Because there's really no other way of getting into it, right? Other than someone kind of suggesting it, or you started at 12, 13 years old with baseball. Just because you love baseball, huh?
That's all. I love baseball. It's back in the day before the internet, right? So we had this newspaper that came, and it was a help wanted ad for a small town that I lived in, 400 or 500 people, and they said we need umpires that at the local park district. And I literally rode down to the shop that the guy was taking names and numbers, and he said, have you ever umpired before? I'm like, no, I never did it before. But he said, okay, you're hired. It's one of those what's the phrase? Your availability is more important than your ability.
Yeah,
when it comes to that
yeah,
stuff.
that is the most important ability, is availability.
That's right. Mhm.
All right, so now that you're starting officiating, you got your whistle in your hand, you're doing basketball. How did you separate yourself from others?
I have to say that I was able to separate myself from others from basketball to baseball and high school only was because of the experience I had in baseball.
Okay.
Where some people, when the first time they pick up a whistle, it's the first time they make any kind of sports decision. Where I was making those decisions for, like I said, 15 years prior to that. I had some professional training on just decision making. So when I was able to do that, I was able to carry that over into basketball, and it went in real nicely, to be honest with you. So when I was able to do that, I could just parlay it into somewhat of a decent high school basketball referee. But I can tell you, when I started college basketball, one of my first goals was I have to bring something to the table that no one else is bringing every night. So I took that as, okay, I have to be really good at things that most people aren't good at, like maybe clock management, communication, leadership skills, all those things that maybe some people just, they go out there and they go referee and have great call selection, but they can't communicate their way out of a paper bag. So I wanted to make sure that I stood out in those ways nightly so I could advance.
So doing baseball really helped prepare you for basketball.
Without a doubt.
Okay. And that should be reassuring to any of us looking to maybe try a new sport, right?
Mhm.
We might want to try baseball, we might want to try football, volleyball, whatever. And because of the skills we've learned in basketball, we might be better prepared for handling something like that.
Well, yeah, if we just think about just my simple story, I lived and breathed baseball, played it forever, loved the game, played it, all the way from a little kid to graduating high school, umpired baseball, and I played basketball up to the 6th grade level. Think about that. So you don't have to be that great athlete in a certain sport to have success in the game you want to officiate.
Would you say that's the norm or the not norm at the Division 1 college ranks? Are a lot of those former players, or at least high school players?
Yeah, I don't really ask people if they've refereed or if they've played. I know that's
Yeah.
a big push. I do believe it's easier to recruit a player because they love the game so much. But I think once you get into officiating, you fall in love with officiating more than the game. And I often rate my, I did high school football for whatever 10 years or so, and I rated them. So I love watching the game of baseball the most. I hate watching the game of football the most. Basketball, like it's right there in the middle. The easiest sport for me to officiate was football.
Okay.
And the funnest sport, because for me, football, if you think of baseball, basketball, and football, baseball, if you're the plate umpire, you're making decisions every minute. Here they come, pitch after pitch after pitch after pitch. Basketball, you're back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, always making decisions. Football, you really only got to start making decisions about every 30 to, whatever the play clock is, right? If it's 30 seconds or 45 seconds or whatever that is, that's when you start making those decisions. When you make some pre-snap decisions, but once the snap happens, now that's when you're making decisions. So if you have an 8-minute quarter, you could potentially maybe only make, whatever, 12 decisions or 16 decisions within a quarter. That's if they all come your way.
Mm-hmm.
They may go the other way and your decision is less. So it was much easier for me to do that. It's harder to know the rules, a lot more little idiosyncrasies in the game, but the actual decision making that you have to do in football is way less than any other sports of the three that I did.
Okay. Wow. So what successes did you have at the high school level, Jeff? We're talking like state finals and all that fun stuff,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. No, nope. Never did the state finals. I made it to the regional final. Actually, I don't really keep track of that, but I may not even made the regional final, to be honest with you. I did work the IESA in our state. We call the IESA, which is Illinois Elementary School Association. I was able to work into the semifinals of the state tournament for that. But in basketball, I have very minimal successes as far as postseason goes in basketball. Very minimal.
Wow. That's surprising and yet impressive, right? In the same breath.
Well, I think it's only surprising to the people who think that you have to take these steps in order to get where I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
I never fell into the trap of it. If I could give you a list of people that told me that I should not go to a Division I camp, that list is way longer than the people who told me I should go. That list is easily 25 people deep telling me that I should not go to a Division I camp. You're not ready. You're not ready. If I would have listened to those people, we don't know where I would be. So I think that's where people make the biggest mistake and I think it's great to seek counsel. Don't get me wrong, but they're seeking counsel and they're taking it as gospel. And really, you got to know what's in your heart of hearts of what you want to do. This is something I wanted to achieve, so I was going for it.
And it was 100% in your control, really, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas maybe a postseason assignment is not necessarily in your control.
That's exactly right. And there's so many people, way, way better than I was in high school basketball. I was still trying to figure the game out. But when I told myself I was going to move up to, college basketball, I bought into it. I was all in. And here's my analogy on postseason assignments. Our regular season pads our checkbook. Our postseason pads our ego. That's all it does.
Mm-hmm.
Give me 70 Division I games and no postseason, then give me 40 Division I games and one postseason game. That don't make sense to me. That's not good business right there. And we're all doing it. We're not all doing it for the money, but we're doing it. We wouldn't do it for free either. So even if you look at, hey, give me 60 boys high school games and no regional assignments or whatever that first round is, because you're gonna be able to take that money and use it for a bigger and better vacation than if you said, hey, give me 30 and 2 regional assignments or postseason assignments, your vacation is less. You don't have as much money for your vacation. So that's just how I treated it. I love the game and I love what I do, but I also had to keep it very business minded at the same time.
Okay. So what advice would you give all of us? Most of us are high school referees, some are college referees. What advice would you give us for how to advance your schedule, how to advance the number of games you get, how to advance in the high school system?
Well, I can only speak for Illinois, and I know just a portion of how it works, right? Stop me if you're different. In Illinois, there's registered, the next level after you've done it for a couple of years, you can get recognized, and then you do a couple more years, then you can get certified. Is that how you guys would work in high school?
We just have levels. So you start off as level 1. Every year
Okay.
you take the test, you move up to level 2, 3, and 4, and then you need a certain number of varsity games to go to a 5 and to a master.
So the master's the highest, right?
Correct.
And to get from 1 to 2, what's your qualification? What do you got to do to get from 1
All
to
you
2?
have to do is take the test and pay your
Okay.
money.
So that gets you 2 and 2.
Correct.
Well, what do you got to do to be a 1 then?
Just register.
Okay, so register. You're get a 2 by taking the test. What do you got to do by a 3?
Just take the test again next year. Or
So
you can attend a camp or a clinician or camp to
help
skip a level.
to help speed that up, right? And then what do you do from a 3 to a 4?
Just take the test again.
And then maybe go to another camp or something. So basically, you're
camp,
telling
yeah.
me I can be an expert official in 6 years?
I can tell you that you could be a master official, I think, in 4 years.
Without doing anything but just taking the test for 4 years. in a row.
Well, to go from 4 to 5 is doing, guys, correct me if I'm wrong, 8 varsity games. And then I think to go from a 5 to a master is 16 varsity games.
Yeah. So
But you
In
can in theory
Illinois.
be playoff eligible. You can be playoff eligible as an L4
Mhm.
and never
Okay.
have done a game in your life. You just pay your money and
There
take
you
the test every year.
Okay, that's fair enough. So in Illinois, we have to do, we register, and you're registered for 2 years. You can be registered for your whole life, but you have to take a part 2 test and get recommendations from ADs or high school basketball coaches to say, yes, we think Jeff Cross is worthy of a promotion. And you can do that within 2 years, and you can do the next one within 2 years to get to certified. And once you're certified, that's it. Then the playoffs are all about points. But my point is, do all the things you have to do to get to the highest level as soon as you can. Because if you wait, because there's so many people that stay registered in the state of Illinois for 10 years and go, you know what? I think I'm going to go for recognized. Well, it's very clearly available to all coaches. And they go, why do I have an official who is 15 years in a member of the IHSA and hasn't gone for promotion? That right away screams that they're really not committed to the game of basketball. They're not willing to take a part 2 test. They're not willing, or maybe they can't pass a part 2 test, or maybe they can't get a coach or an AD to give them that recommendation. So it sends up red flags. So get all of that stuff, as we say, you can control, out of the way, get it done. And once it gets done, then you find yourself at the highest level, at master referee, because you didn't postpone any of that stuff. And I think if I was just the biggest red flag I see in high school officiating across the board is we have so many officials that are counting on 1 or 2 referees, whatever the sport is, to help them with the answers. When we do a test, they'll have a big meeting like this on Zoom, or they'll have a meeting in person, and one person will walk in the room with the answers, and the other 80 will sit there and write down their answers just so they can get 100. I would much rather get a passing grade of 85 and do it by myself than you give me the answers and I get 100.
Yeah.
Because that's going to make me better. If officials want to advance and they take ownership of their own developmental skills, they will advance so much further than if you just wait for someone to carry you along.
Yeah, and all of us on this call know there's officials that come to a meeting just for the answers, right?
That's
And
right.
Their test is 100% blank, and you're the one that's got all the rule references written on yours, and because you want to take this seriously, you want to do a good job. But ultimately, it comes down to you have a master level official who I won't work a game with because they're not a good referee, and I don't want to be put in a bad situation. And then you have an L2 referee, 20-year-old kid that takes it seriously, does clips, attends meetings. I would do any game with that kid at all.
Mhm.
And yeah, so I think what you're saying is like do it right, do it the right way, know the rules.
Yeah, I would say do it right, do it the right way, and also do it as fast as you can. Because once you get to a master, you can't go back down, right?
You can if you don't get your number of games, or if you don't take the test, you go down 1 level per year.
Right. That's if you don't do the stuff you've been doing normally for the past 5 or 6 years.
Mhm.
Same thing in Illinois. Once you reach the highest level, which is certified, once you get to, you can't stop being certified. You will always be certified. And so get that over with. Don't let that take 20 years to happen. Get it over in your first 4, 5, 6 years, whatever it takes. And then, and actually now you can concentrate on getting plays right.
Yeah. So, so now you're in high school, you're successful there, or maybe regular season successful, right? You said you're maybe not
Sure. Mhm.
postseason successful, but what gave you the urge or the courage, I guess, to make the jump to collegiate officiating?
Yeah. I think this is a great question. And the biggest thing for me that made me want to jump to college basketball, because I had jumped from high school baseball to college baseball. I knew in baseball, the professionalism from college to high school was leaps and bounds better. I wanted to be around professional people, professional officials, professional coaches, professional ADs, professional, just all that stuff was just so much better, right? I worked many high school games where, I would be the add-on third person, and two of the officials are going out for beers with the home coach after the game. I didn't want nothing to do with that. I didn't want nothing to do with it. That wasn't what I wanted to be. I wanted to be professional in what I was doing. And I told myself, if I'm going to go to college, go the college route, I'm only going to shoot for the stars. I'm not going to go and say, oh, I only want to be a Division III official. So I spent a lot of time, just committing to that. I even asked a lot of people, because this is a question I asked, like people that were close to me. What do you think is better? Working 60 Division III men's games or 2 Division I women's games? What's better? Just kind of see what they thought, you know what I mean, where their brain was at. And then after doing more investigation into the differences between NCAA men and NCAA women, I ultimately fell in love with the mechanics of NCAA women and the court coverage. So that's why I stuck with that and stayed with that.
Okay. Was your wife, what did Mrs. Cross have to say about your kids?
Yeah, Gina. So when I decided to go college basketball, she was on board with that. And my kids didn't really have any, they were pretty young at the time. So there was a time in my career where I was working Division I baseball and Division I basketball. So I was working 2 Division I sports, and my kids were pretty little. And I made a family decision to say, okay, I can't put Gina through all of that for 2 sports. And I just didn't know if I had it in me, the bandwidth to say, okay, I got to know these rules up and down in baseball. And as soon as I, get done to basketball, I go right back into baseball. So I just didn't know if that was something I wanted to do. So, yeah, that was the thought process. Now I can tell you, when I've got my first Division I contract, it was like in an email, but no one had phones, right? So you actually had to get up in the morning and check your email and go to the computer. And my wife, my 2 kids who were young but old enough to know that something good had happened to Dad, and my mother-in-law, they made me like a little cake, congratulations on Division I. So it was a pretty exciting day. But the kicker to that is, I called my mom, told her, she's like, oh, that's so exciting, you know what I mean? And the very next year when I got hired at Big Ten, I called her and said, hey, I actually might have texted her. I said, I got hired in the Big Ten. And my mom, I love her. She says, so is that better or worse than Division I? That was her answer or her question. So it's just when you're celebrating with people that don't understand, they're celebrating with you, and they know that they see the hard work that you put in. So that's all that matters.
Yeah. And that's so true. Like you get home from a game and you share with your wife, and she's like, I just want to go to bed. like,
Yeah.
because they don't get like, what was a big game or,
Can you take the trash out? Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So now you're in college. How did you try to advance your schedule? How do you advocate for yourself? And now you're in the collegiate ranks.
It's real simple. This is real simple. Are you ready for this? Let your work speak for itself. That's all I did. I went out and worked every night. I went 4 and 5 hours to a JUCO game just to let my work speak for itself. I lost money on certain nights. You know, my wife would say, you know, why are you going this far for, back then was, you know, $100 or $120. Why are you doing this? And I said, you know, I have to be better at what I want. I want to be better at what I'm doing. And the only way I can feel comfortable by doing it is letting my work speak for itself. I never once called coordinators and say, hey, you know, can I get a, you know, can you put me on a different game, or can I work with this person? And, you know, I don't want to say zero, but I had very minimal mentors, very minimal. So much to, like, my first Division I camp I went basically blind. I had no one guiding me through it. Went to the wrong spot, called someone, say, where do we go? We go here. I went there, found the right spot, stayed in the wrong hotel. Everyone was staying in a certain hotel. I'm staying in a Motel 6 because I could save a lot of money and I didn't know where to stay. So all those things were happening. And I've shared this before in camps, but if you want to be really good at something, if you want to be really, really good at something, have your family depend on you being successful at it in order to keep the lights on and food on the table. You will be good at it. When you got two kids at home going, okay, I got to feed them, the lights bill needs to be paid, all those things. And the only thing I had was officiating in some, you know, whatever, some factory job, but I didn't want to live, you know, like that. It's amazing how good you can be at something when you know people that you love are really dependent on you being good at it.
Did you like, were you working at the time, Jeff? When you
Yeah.
were doing all this, normal job?
Yeah. Yep. I was working on a midnight shift in a factory.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. So I was able to get to a lot of games, you know what I mean? Because I was already off. But you know, that time when I was working at the factory, um, my wife was an absolute saint dealing with me because I was an absolute jerk. I was getting very minimal sleep. I was very doing, you know, working midnight shift, getting off at 7 in the morning, trying to sleep till whatever noon. You know, if I got home right away, and then go get up, get ready, head to a game, 4 hours, do my game, come back, kiss my wife, go to work again.
Oh
So
my goodness.
I went through a lot there. But
Wow.
there was a time when I lost my game. I lost my job at the factory due to cutbacks, and they gave us a severance pay. And I took that nest egg and said, okay, this nest egg, which at the time seemed like $1 million, but it wasn't even close. And I said, this is what we're going to live off. I'm going to just buy into officiating. I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to go to every camp I can go to, and I'm going to work as many games as I can. And it worked out for me.
Wow. That's kind of a moving story, Jeff. That's
Well,
really cool.
you know, I think it is pretty cool story, but to me, the coolest part of that story is everyone remembers 9/11, right? And if you don't remember 9/11, look it up, right? We were so broke when 9/11 happened. We had the bare minimum in our house. We shut the cable off because we said that's an expense that we could save and not have to do it, right? Just because I was trying to elevate in officiating. And when it happened, people were calling our phone like, hey, did you see what happened? Did you see what happened? Of course, we don't have the internet, we don't have any of that stuff. That stuff wasn't even available yet. And I'm like, no, I have no idea what you're talking about. And they're like, they just blew up the Twin Towers. I'm like, I have no idea. All that because we were trying to just skimp and save. We spent an early part of our career, when I lost my job at the factory, we went straight to what we called WIC. It was some sort of government program, which, helped with milk for our kids and food for our kids. We were on it. We were just hanging on. Like I said, my wife, if she would have left me, I would have understood at the time. But it all paid off, you know what I
Wow.
mean? And it makes for a great story now, I guess.
Yeah, like it almost could be a movie almost.
All right.
So, hey, so now you're in college. How are you preparing for your games physically, mentally, emotionally? How are you making sure you're ready to officiate when that ball goes up?
Yeah. Well, it's all summer long, right? So, obviously, it was a lot easier when I was younger to stay, physically ready. You bounce back a lot easier. Now that I'm going to be 55, the recoup time's a little bit more difficult, a little bit more Bengay and, ice and things like that. But I think physically it's pretty easy, to be honest with you. Mental is the hardest part because you're in a grind of, driving 4 hours to a game, being under high scrutiny for, 2 or 3 hours, driving four hours home, pulling a driveway at maybe 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, and then get up, try and see your wife off to work, and then you're going to go do it again. Maybe there's times where I'm on the road, 7 out of 10 days. I don't even see my wife for 10 days because I'm in hotels or in only got, FaceTime or phone call. So mentally was the hardest part. And once I got past that, found ways to be mentally strong. It's a lot easier, I think. If this people say this job isn't for everyone, just officiating in general, but the quicker you get control of your mental game, the easier this job becomes.
Wow. And emotionally, have you, it has to have been taxing, right? With the,
Mhm.
how have you handled that, or how have you learned to cope with, you miss your wife, you miss your kids, how do you cope with that?
My wife don't let me quit.
Oh.
So, I'm like, hey, I'm kind of ready, I'm actually finishing up my 19th year in Division I basketball. And, I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of ready to shut it down. She's like, oh, you can't shut it down. You're doing great. You know what I mean? So she's very supportive, and she encourages me to continue on, even if I'm thinking about slowing down. But emotionally, just missing being, family affairs, right? Birthday parties and things like that. And sometimes I'm out of the country for Thanksgiving. And so it's hard to do that, but you do it enough times, it doesn't have as big of impact as it did the first,
Okay.
3 or 4 times. So you can, and then, families get to understand that, okay, Jeff's got games over Thanksgiving. So instead of us having Thanksgiving on that Thursday, we're going to have it on the Sunday afterwards or whatever. So
Okay.
works out good.
All right. So how do you prepare to work with other partners that you haven't worked with before, or how do you prepare for the two teams that are on the court that night? Do you take a lot of stock in that?
I very rarely talk about the two teams. Maybe the biggest reason is because you never know from night to night who's actually going to play. Maybe someone's sick, maybe somebody turned an ankle, whatever that is. So I don't spend a whole lot of time talking about numbers of the two teams we're going to play, but I do spend a lot of time trying to prepare us as a crew. So I want to talk about, not necessarily, those 4 or 5 things that you put up there, stay in your primary, don't call obvious, things like that. That should be basic stuff when we're getting to the postseason, right? When you guys are talking about your postseason, right now, I believe it's our job when we get in the locker room is to make everyone feel so comfortable that no matter how difficult it gets in the 32 minutes you guys have in high school or whatever that is, that they can come up and tell you anything.
Mm-hmm.
And even if that potentially could be wrong. So that's what I spend my time doing, making sure that no matter what the official, if they're 30 years or 3 years in it, they know they can come up and tell me anything, whether I missed a play, whether they think they missed a play, or I don't understand the rule, or they could stand up to me and say, Jeff, you're about to misapply this rule. I want them to feel that. I want them to be able to have, as I say, at the altar type honesty when they communicate to me.
How would you say you create that sort of atmosphere with a new official or a veteran official?
Well, the best way to do it is get them talking about themselves. People love to talk about themselves. They love to do it. And, even in a situation where if they're 30 years or 3 years, that people want to know, that people want to give their information. So how was your travel? Tell me about your kid. I understand they had a birthday last week. How was that? It develops a bond that is amazing. And we, even during games. So when we have situations, so let's just say I have a 3-year official who calls an offensive foul that to my view, looks like a pretty darn good call. I got to come up with a phrase that's going to make them want to listen to what I have to say and also give me feedback anytime I'm asking for it. So I would say something like, that offensive foul you had at the 8 minute or whatever, the 7 minute mark in the first, yeah, that was a Hall of Fame call. They're like, all right, I'm in. I'm on Jeff Cross's team. You know what I mean? And that's what we want. So that way, when I go, hey, Ben, should we be resetting the shot clock here? You're going to have no problem giving me the honesty that I want, not just what I want to hear. And even if you say I don't know, and then people often forget, and I think BK would probably agree to this, is sometimes I don't know is still an answer. That can be an answer.
Would you rather, I mean, I imagine you'd rather be honest than to BS you and shoot some smoke, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, because it just gets us in trouble. So give me I don't know. I'll work with that.
So that's a fun thing about what you just said about like, giving someone a Hall of Fame call or good call. I had someone go like this to me in a game, and I was too new, Jeff. I was like, the hell's that guy doing? Like, what's mechanic is this? Do I not know something? Is it a signal chart that I missed? I'm like, is he doing the shake weight? I don't know what he's doing.
Yeah, right.
And he was trying to, and obviously I know now, good call, good call. Cause you can't tell me like, as I'm reporting or doing a free throw, but he wants me to know that, you nailed it, good job.
Yeah. And I think that it's a very interesting thing. Like we're trying to be incognito, that we're trying to tell someone a good job. Imagine working in an office and the person in your, that works 2 desks over you does something good, and you can't look at them and say good job. You got to give them some hand gesture, like, a thumbs up, or I'm sorry, I don't want to say out loud that you did a good job. I think we probably need more of that on the floor. Good job. We don't need secret signals. Just tell me good job, man. Tell me something.
Yeah. So in my job as a math teacher and IT guy, I had a business manager that was he just was so thankful, and it was really awkward for me. Like, he's like, really great job on getting this new technology in the building or whatever. And it was awkward because I was never thanked before. But then once you experience it, you're like, man, this feels good. Like, I was just doing my job and just kind of keep my head down, do my job and whatever. But like being thanked and recognized was nice. And, then I wanted to run through a brick wall for him, right? So
yep, that's exactly right.
Yeah. So
I often joke when someone says, hey man, really good job. Like my boss, years ago when I had a job and I was working some overtime, and my boss called me and goes, hey, really can't thank you enough for working, this extra 4 hours. I looked at him and like, you're paying me, right? You are going to pay me overtime, right? Yeah, but I just want to thank you. So, we get rewarded with our paychecks and our things like that, but those small things really go probably further than check does.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing also from you is like the last thing you should be talking about is maybe the game. You should preface it with, how's your family? How's your kids? I saw on Facebook your wife had a birthday. How'd that, the party, how'd that go? Talking about everything, not because like especially in your level, everyone's professional, right? They're getting the big checks with a couple zeros on them, right? So I mean, getting that bond, because you guys can handle your business, right? So, but I mean, I'm not saying you don't have to pregame, but just to get that emotional connection with each other sounds like it's pretty important.
Well, I think it's important at every level. In our level, like I said previously, I may not see my wife for 7 days. I may want to talk about her.
Yeah.
At the high school level, maybe you just maybe you went into work early at 3 a.m. so you get off in time to make this 6 o'clock tip. You know what I mean? So let's talk about something, besides we got to go referee this game. Yeah, no kidding, man. Just give me a chance to decompress a little bit, because I just put 12 hours in so I can make this game. And my wife's pissed because I'm not able to make, her mom's birthday party or whatever that is. So we got to be able to find that way to detach from the game just a little bit, because we all know, even in a high school level, that the game, we all know how to referee that game to some extent. So let's find a way to engage with the person, not the game as much.
All right, so let's talk about now. Jeff Cross is on the court with his crew. What are some strategies you use to get plays right?
Yeah, I have one strategy. Well, I have a couple strategies, but the most important one is self-talk. If you were in my head in a game, you would probably think I need to be admitted to mental institution. All the things I'm saying to myself.
Okay.
So if I'm not talking to myself, that's a real issue. For me, self-talk helps me get through very tense situations, because even when it's tense, I know that I'm probably not going to argue with myself. I know that I'm, we're having these conversations between my left brain and my right brain. So that's the number one thing I do. And I think, I read a book. I think if I told you about it or not, but it's by Trevor Moad. It Takes What It Takes by Trevor Moad. He's a mental conditioning coach, and he talks about staying neutral. So I spend a lot of time not focusing on this play that I just got correct, this play that I didn't get correct or I got correct. I want to stay neutral. So when I'm refereeing a game and we have a timeout, I typically stick to the facts. The facts are the fouls are 4-2. We're in a 5-point ball game. The arrow's in favor of white. Those are the facts. That's going to help me go to that play. And, in college, I think it might even be a little bit easier because I really only have to do it in, approximately 30-second increments. And then I go and do the other floor in 30-second increments in a high school game. And we can have it in college too, but, there's a lot of times where a possession can be a minute. You know what I mean? If they're running a zone and they're trying to get that open shot, a lot of decisions on an end, because we all know, at least for me, once we go to the other end of the floor, we still have responsibilities, but you get a second or two to switch. Okay, now I'm refereeing this defense. So, but self-talk is the most important thing to do, I think. If you're not doing it, find a way to do it.
So you have someone in your game, we call them GFUs sometimes, right? So this is someone that's not good for the game or is problematic or has an attitude. How do you handle a player like that?
I penalize appropriately.
Okay.
It's that simple.
Do you get the captain involved? Do you talk to the player directly?
Yeah. See, that's no, I don't. I go directly to the player. I go directly to the source. And then if the coach wants to know what's going on, I tell the coach. When you were talking about, finding out who the speaking captain is, because you want to know who really is in charge. And I think that's great. But let me just give you an idea. So 13 is the speaking captain. What happens if 13's out getting a drink of water because they're getting a spell and now you got this issue? What are we doing? You know what I mean? So I often say we paint ourselves in corners sometimes because we follow these guidelines or these ways of the way it's always been done. I never ask who the speaking captain is, never. Because when I got a problem with a player, I'm going to go to the player. I'm going to either address it by saying, that's it, that's a warning, can't do that anymore, or I issue a technical foul. That's how it goes. Whatever the player is. I'm not a big fan of going to coaches and say, hey, can you really help me out with 13? She's getting out of sorts. Because then the other coach goes, well, why aren't you warning my 12? Maybe 12 went over the top. The more I say, the more they can back me into. Yeah. So I'm just not going to do it, and I hear people talk about in captains meetings. This is what I heard when I first started. Okay, captains, blah, 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 this and that. And there's 2 scoreboards, right, in the gym. And my, because they have one on one and one on the other. And my crew chief, who has been in the game a long, long time, looks and says, high school game, looks and says, okay, if the scoreboards go out, we're going with that one. That one's the official one. That's what he would say. I'm like, well, what if that one goes out? Now what are you doing? And so it just didn't make any sense. I felt like he painted himself into a corner. Well, you said you were going that one. That one says 3 seconds left in the game, but we all know there's 5 minutes left in the game. So what are you going to do? You said you were going to do that. And that's the whole thing about hand check. Hey, we're calling hand checks, okay, or whatever. If you have unsporting behavior, we're going to give you a technical foul. Well, what if you don't? What if you say you're going to do it at the captain's meeting and someone does it and you're like, man, it's a 1-point ball game. I'm not going to give a technical foul at this moment in the game. As BK says, possession consequence, right? So he decided not to give a technical foul. And they go, well, you said you were going to. So the lesson there is less is more when it comes to that stuff. Only say stuff you're willing to commit to for the whole game from start to finish.
Okay, so that's how you handle a player. Well, let's say we see, y'all see it on the big screens at times on the Big Ten Network, some unsporting comments or behavior from a coach. How do you handle that?
So
same way?
Well, Yeah, same way, but typically you can have more of a professional conversation with the coach than you are a player, because a player is hung up and they think they just got hit, right? So they're on the defense. They're not really into whether or not you saw it or not. Coaches typically are more conversational wise. If they are elevated and I need to speak to them, first of all, I let them finish what they're going to say. I typically ask them if they want to hear my opinion. And I do it in the softest, lowest tone I can do it in, to get them to understand, like, okay, what is he saying? And then once I get all those things, and the fourth thing is I always try and find a way to agree with the coach. And so just to give you an example, that was not a travel. You know what I mean? That was not, or that was not a foul. That was not a foul. It was a travel. I agree. It was a travel, but it was a travel after she got fouled. So I found a way to agree. Find a way to agree with coaches, because as soon as you agree with coaches, their guard comes down just for a half a second and they feel like they've won the argument, even though we're still going with the call that went against them.
So what would you say if coach is talking too much, making too many criticisms of the officiating or something like that?
Well, you can just, it's pretty easy to warn, right? Hey, that's enough. You know, I'm gonna give you your warning here. And then we're done. I've said in high school games, you know, you have to give us a chance to work. You know, you're not giving us a chance to work. But mostly I just say if they're coming up on the technical foul line, then I try and get out my warning as soon as possible, because coaches understand it. Yeah, that's a warning. It's too much animation, too much giving your opinion on those plays, and then moving forward. You know, you're distracting from what I'm out here to do.
What if they say it's 10-2 on the foul count?
My answer is 100% of the time. Every time they say it's 10-2 on the foul count, I say I am well aware of the foul count.
That's it. Just leave it at that, right?
That's it.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, like BK said earlier, like it's hard to, you don't want to say too much because that gives them ammunition to quote you, right? Like you said.
That's right.
Would you say, because I've seen this in a few games that I've seen this year, both my games and on games I watched. Sometimes an official will give a warning, and then there'll be a very similar behavior by that bench later in the game, and they choose not to technical foul. Do you think that paints you into a corner by giving a warning? Like you have to, be ready to give a technical foul for the bench?
It can, right? And that's the art of our game is we have three officials, and all three officials can have different lines. So if I give a warning where you look at it and go, I don't think I would have warned that. Or I pass on something and you go, man, that's a technical foul. So we all have those. But once the line is drawn with this warning by anybody on the crew, or technical foul by any in the crew, then we need to recognize that's where we're at. So if you got a coach that maybe come out of their coaching box, maybe arms up, whatever that is, and we issue a warning, then we know that's where the line is. We see opposite coach doing that, it's real simple. Warning. If we gave a technical foul for the first one, we can give a technical foul for the second one. So that's the art of it, is understanding that wherever that line is, whenever it gets drawn, sometimes it don't get drawn at all in a night, right? We don't have to give out any warnings for technical fouls. But as soon as it's drawn, make sure it's very clear to all three people on the crew that this is where the line's at.
Yeah. So BK, I don't know if you want to jump on here. You want to, because you had that instance we talked about in the last meeting where technical foul was issued for that coach being out of the coaching box, officiating or critical of the officials, and then did the same exact thing, right? So he had to issue a technical foul then, and then he was ejected from the game. So I think that's very important that if you draw that line in the sand, that's the line, and it used to be like, now that it's an official thing in the book, we all know it, right? I'm not saying you got to make a whole spectacle of it, right? But we need all of our partners to know that there's an official warning in the book, So I'll usually, hand up, tell the coach that's, this is your official bench warning. I'll go over the book. I'll point to the scorekeeper, put it in the book at, 4 minutes and 5 seconds in the first half. Just so everybody knows. Otherwise, back before the official warning, we used to do unofficial warnings, and then you get into halftime, like, oh, I talked to coach, and then your buddy's like, I talked to coach. Well, other guy's like, well, I talked to him too. Well, now he's got
Mhm.
3 warnings, right?
Mhm. So is that a mechanic that you are to stop the game and have them put it in the book?
You know, that is a tool in our repertoire now in high school, right? The official bench warning.
I know the warning's there, but is it you stop the game, put it in the book?
I guess it depends on the situation. Obviously, I would never, just like a technical foul, you would never stop a fast break. You would never, but it also looks really bad. Like, let's say he's being really unsporting coming up the court, and you're like, okay, I don't want to stop the play. But then all of a sudden they have a minute and 30-second possession, and now you're going to warn them in a dead ball situation. Well, that ship has sailed.
Yeah, well, I guess that's my point that I'm getting at. If it's not in the mechanics for us to stop the game and go record the warning, then if you have to stop the game to give a warning, I believe you probably should just give a technical foul.
Yeah.
Fair
Yep.
enough. I mean, if we're doing this and they're out of sorts and we go, boop, boop, hold on, that's a warning. And we go to this table, and if that's not part of what you're supposed to be doing, then I think we should give a technical foul. But if you're if your state association is saying, hey, listen, this is how we want you to handle it, then I'm on board with that. I'm okay with that.
I don't, BK, can you jump on? I don't know the answer to that.
Someone said yes. I'm not for sure who that was or if they were referring to that question.
Yeah, we're required to alert the coach that they've been given a bench warning, and then it goes in the book, Jeff.
Okay, then that's good. I think that's what we should be doing then, right?
During a live ball, Brian, or should we wait? Are we told to wait for the next dead ball?
Well, you wait for the next dead ball opportunity. Obviously, you're not going to stop,
So there we
fast
go.
break or a possession.
So,
You wait till there's no possession consequence.
so that's I believe then goes to my point. If I'm stopping the game to give someone a warning, that means they probably went too far already and deserve a technical foul because
Agree.
we're going, hey, wait a second. He just said or she just said this. I'm stopping the game. I don't care what's going on, and I'm going to give a warning. If you're doing that, I believe that's a technical foul. If it's a warning, you go, hey, that's a warning, and then it wasn't that big a deal, and you can get it. The coach knows you gave the palms up, whatever it is, and then you can readdress it, at the next timeout or the next dead ball. Go, hey, put this in the book. They were warned.
Yeah.
So that's my point on that thing.
Yeah, I agree. So how do you deal, Jeff, with partners? You must work with some amazing referees, but you also must work with some not so great referees, or maybe maybe you guys just don't jive together. How do you deal with that?
Yeah. Well, early in my career, I remember I was working with again, I was a little oblivious. I didn't understand that I was working with Final Four officials. I was just kind of working, I was just like, oh, what's going on, right? And I got lucky and got a few games here and there. And then I was working a Division III game, and I was working with a senior official. And he asked me, he goes, I know you're working with a lot of big time officials now, and I would really like to know what you're learning. What have you learned in those locker rooms and in those games with those people? And let me tell you something. I want to be perfectly clear. Whether you're working with 2 Final Four officials or I guess the 2 Final Four officials make just as many mistakes as the person who did it 5 years. They make mistakes all the time. We tend to put these elite officials, these Final Four officials, these NCAA tournament officials on this pedestal that they don't make mistakes, and that would be 100% incorrect. So the quicker you realize that, the quicker you're going to be able to have the courage to step in and go, hey, listen, I know you're a Final Four official, but you're about to misapply a rule, because we have to understand it, because even they would say that themselves, mistakes night in and night out. The difference is when this Final Four, or whatever Final Four official makes a mistake, their communication skill level is at genius level compared to someone who is their 3rd year working college basketball. And that's how they can get through that. That they can communicate, maybe it's something simple as, hey, I missed it. Listen, yep, or whatever the answer is, their communication is so much better than if I walk over there as a 3rd year official and go, well, they're all mad and I'm trying to talk to them and ain't anybody listening, and it turns south.
Yeah.
So that's where the people that you're working with, and and I can't stress it enough. And a matter of fact, I've said over this whole year, we spend too much time trying to get people at 100% call accuracy every night, which it's great to do, but I think it's a waste of time because we're not going to be 100% call accurate. And even if we do, no one's going to know it until the next day. And I still got to communicate my way through a game with coaches and partners and things like that. So the better I can be at leadership, the better I can be at communication, the better that game's going to go, whether I'm 100% call accuracy or I'm at a 90 that night.
So are you kind of suggesting, Jeff, that that's almost more important, the soft skills of it, the communication, dealing with players and coaches, managing the game is than play selection? I'm not saying you're a bad play caller by any means.
Yeah, I think that is you have to have a good general play calling ability. You have to be able to do that. You can't be a below average play caller with great communication skills and elevate. You're not going to be able to do that, right? But you have to have a pretty good base on your play calling. And if you want to elevate into whatever that is, the state finals or to NCAA tournament, what's got to be on point is your communication skills. That has to be on point.
That's good to hear. Because a lot of us, maybe put too much emphasis on play calling, I guess.
I think it's a mistake. I mean, we all did it, you know what I mean? And we all like to go through a whole year and say we've never missed a play, right? But it just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
You know, if we're strong mentally and I miss a play, let's say you miss a play in the last 10 seconds of a game and the wrong team ends up winning because you miss a play, a judgment call, how fast are you going to be able to come back and referee again? If you're hanging on to that mistake for 3 and 4 days, you're a mess for the rest of the week.
Yeah. That's
So
what's
you
good about
gotta
basketball. The game's the next night.
Yeah, there's plenty to have and not enough referees for sure. Yep.
So at halftime, what do you guys, what's your halftime talk? How does that go? Do you guys talk about specific plays or just the general theme of the game going on at the time?
Yeah, I think the general theme, right? We go over some absolutes, right? Their point guard has 3 fouls. Whatever. This team has 3 fouls. Their point guard, their number 1 player, their post player has 2. Don't forget, we warned Coach A. Maybe looks like they were running a zone the first half. My guess is they might try and press the second half because they're down 10. Those kind of things we talk about. But ultimately, if we have 10-minute break or 15-minute break at halftime, we may spend 5 to 6 minutes discussing those things. The rest of the stuff you have to reset yourself, right? I have to go to the bathroom. I want to wash my hands. You know what I mean? I want to put some water on my face, whatever that is, to get myself ready for the next 20 minutes. And if it means me not thinking, for 5 or 6 or 8 minutes, just I don't want to say visiting, but it doesn't have to be that entailed. We're fortunate enough to get send an iPad in the locker room with us and we can look at our plays from the first half if we missed them or not and those kind of things. But in a game where you don't, you could say, hey, Ben, did you think I got that offensive foul right at the 2-minute mark in a second? And you could say yes or no. Yeah, I think you're right. I think I missed it. I think it would have been defended if I put a whistle on that play or whatever that is, right? So we could talk about those things, but it shouldn't be a life or death conversations. Just kind of a lighter version of what you did pregame, I think.
Okay. That's good to know, because I think some of us guys, maybe we envision like it was real intense at the Division I level,
Yeah. I mean, I guess if you had some bad situations, it might be right.
Mhm.
But the only thing I tell people all the time, the only thing I can guarantee you when I get done is I will come out of the locker room with a winner. When we get done, we'll have a winner. Everything else is off the table. I could do anything else there. May make 20 mistakes that night.
All right. So now the game's over. The horn goes off. How long do you guys have a big post game that you guys go through?
So if there's no technical fouls, no intentional fouls, and I'm going to give it around a 10-point game. If it's more than a 10-point game, it's shake hands and get out of Dodge.
Okay.
Good job. Let's
Okay.
go. We're good. If it's less than a 10-point game, typically I will ask, I probably ask this every game if I'm the crew chief, is there anything we need to call the boss about? Anything I need to let the boss know about, was whatever that was, right? If we had technical fouls or we had a no call at the end. If it's within 5 and we've got decisions that were, affecting the potential winner, we try and look at those plays before we leave the locker room. We try to decide if we need to clip those plays and get those to the boss right away. So they're ahead of the game if a coach was to turn it in or whatever it is. But that's kind of how it works. Sometimes it's just real low key. Good job. We're out of here. Drive safe. Next one, it could be all the way down to we're in the locker room for another 45 minutes because we have to look at 10 plays down the stretch that could have changed the game. We have to look at, should we have had an intentional foul here? We ruled, common foul, not intentional foul. Off it goes, those kind of things.
Oh, do you offer constructive comments to your partners ever, or is that kind of frowned upon, or how do you constructively offer some advice to a partner?
Yeah, so I think that's a good question. Because we do this as younger officials, we're looking for feedback, right? If you and I were to work together, Ben, we'd get done. My guess is you'd be like, "Hey, Jeff, you got anything for me?" Right? Or before the game, like, "Hey, listen, this is my first Division I game. Anything you have for me, I want to know." All these things, right? And this is my response to everyone who is, we'll call them, beginner or rookie within the league or within Division I or within a level. A lot of people believe, they go into the game like, my boss has really, really tested me with this assignment. The Wisconsin Officials Association is really testing me with this sectional final game. They're testing me. And I tell them point blank, you've already been tested and passed. That's why you're on the game. So we put this in our head that we think our bosses are doing these things. When I say it the other way, you've already passed the test. That's why you got the assignment. You already passed the test. That's why you got a Division I assignment. You already passed the test. That's why you're working a conference championship. Those are the things we need to remember because it's not about a test. You still can fail, but you passed the test in order to get that assignment. So to answer your question, I typically don't give a whole lot of advice. I maybe give advice if there's something that I can give advice on that not during live action. Like mechanically, you would probably want to do a timeout this way, or mechanically, you might want to make sure you get yourself to the 28-foot mark, and then after the game, if there's a handful of clips to go around, I might give some advice here. You might see that play better if we're wider. So,
and what about post game? Would you say post game, like, hey, you may want to work lower SC, or maybe you want to rotate more, you might want to go earlier?
Not typically.
Okay.
I typically say that for a missed play, right? Where a play comes through and maybe I thinking that they need to be wider, right? Or maybe they need to be at close down. I'm thinking that, but now I've got the clip to say, if you were at close down, you might have had a better look at that play. Because who am I to say, because I'm 6 foot tall, right? And if I'm telling another referee who's 5'5", well, they can't see the post like I can see the post. So maybe they need to be wider to see that post. So they need to be in a position that their height dictates what they can see. So I'm not going to do that until they miss the play and then say, well, maybe you might want to look at, a different position for that play.
That's interesting because, like, when you go to camp, they're like, they'll tell you, hey, you want to stand right here for a free throw, or you want to stand here. But I guess, it kind of depends on your stature a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, we call those positions of dependability, right? There are spots that are like the home base, and like, okay, I know I really can't go wrong by being in this spot, but if we have moving parts, I got to move also. I can't just stand in this one spot and expect the game to be seen perfectly when I'm 5'5" and the other person's 6'2".
Yeah, BK on a couple of clips we've gone over this year has said, like, the officials got concrete shoes or cement in his shoes. He needs to be a little more actively moving. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I just want to give you one chance to plug your podcast, which everyone should be listening to. We all have a lot of windshield time, not as much as, obviously you have like a 4-hour drive. We drive an hour and 25 minutes. We think that's a long drive sometimes. So hearing 4 hours, I'm like, man, you would need to put a lot more podcast material, you and Chad, fill up that time. But you want to just tell us what that's all about if someone's not listening to it?
Yeah, if you're not listening to it, I mean, obviously, I think it's a great listen. I want to say a couple things right first. We don't make any money doing it. You know what I mean? There's some advertisements in the beginning and the end, but that basically pays for the use for us to use a platform. So there's no like these guys are doing it for cash. We're not doing it for cash. Matter of fact, um, if I was to get cash, I would probably put it towards something of a good cause. But we're not getting cash for it. And when we first started doing it, we want to help people be uncommon in everything they do, not just the officiating. And most people would probably agree that officiating is a big part of what they do. And it's a big part of why they're a great employee. It's a big part of why they're a great father. So, I think it all runs hand in hand. And, we don't want to be the normal thing. Oh, here's another officiating podcast. And they tell you, just give out a technical foul. We want to be able to help people through normal everyday. Chad's a pastor, so he has a nice biblical background to help, maybe see a more judicial side than I would. It's very nice to know that people are listening and people are getting some sort of positive feedback from it, that gives them little nuggets throughout the podcast. It when I used to, years ago, right, and over time, you would mentor 2 or 3 people over the year, right? You're like, okay, I'm gonna whatever. I'm working. I met these 3 people at camp. I'm gonna stay connected with them for a couple of years and mentor them and get them off to the next level, or help them with whatever it is. With this podcast, on the average, we have around 10,000 downloads a week. So that means that we're potentially affecting 10,000 people in a week, where I can only do it before 3 or 4 people in a week. It depends how many phone calls I can make, maybe 5 or 6. It all depends how it works. So now I can do that. So it's more efficient to do it that way. And, it feels good to talk to Chad. Chad's a good friend of mine, and I like visiting with him. And he really puts me into some corners that I don't feel very comfortable in, but that's okay. I enjoy being around it. So
I think it's well worth the listen. We listen to it on the way to our games. My son is a 7th grader. We had to drive an hour a few weeks ago to a youth tournament to get some games for him, and we listened to Uncommon Drive podcast on the way there and Uncommon Drive on the way back. And he's like, Dad, why are we listening to this? I'm like, dude, we can listen to songs anytime. This is like valuable information that can really help you today and help you next week and help you on the court even as a player. So yeah, I think it's worth everyone's time. But I just wanted to thank you, Jeff, for joining us. I know BK, we definitely got to push that meeting next week. But I just wanted to thank Jeff. Does anyone have any questions for Jeff that we didn't go over, that he has a wealth of knowledge here? Just unmute yourself and ask away, or put in the chat.
they're scared.
Everyone's scared. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Aaron. You got your camera on. You want to talk?
I don't really want
First
to
of all,
talk.
Aaron, first of all, I do watch your stuff, your educational videos, your breakdowns on Facebook. So I do watch that. It's pretty good stuff, buddy.
Thanks, man. So second year official, had to warn a coach last night, but is there a certain line that a coach has to cross? Or so I've heard one official in particular, he says that there's 3 P's, right? Profane, personal, prolonged, before you hit him with the technical foul or action, I guess. Like we Preston had one last Friday night where he turned and kicked a chair. So obviously there's action. So is there a spot where you go, nope, you got it, you bought that one?
Well, I've never heard that before. That's really good. So it's profane, personal,
And prolonged. 3
prolonged.
P's. Yeah.
Yep. I think that's really, really good. I mean, I think you should be telling everyone that. That's never heard that before. So for me, it's all about if they use the word you, which is personal, right? It's if they say you, whatever, then I shut it down real quick. If they say that's a terrible call, they may be right. but they're not going to say you're terrible, you're missing it, whatever it is. And, I typically am pretty quick to warn if I can have that opportunity. And another thing I do when I warn is, a lot of times, because what happens when you warn a coach, they walk away from you, right? They tend to walk away from you. And, I'll look at assistants and say, listen, I need her or him to understand that they've been warned. And, I need you to help me, get within. If a coach starts to get elevated after that, let's just say 3 more minutes, and maybe they're starting into the 3 Ps again, I will interrupt them and say, you understand you've already been warned, right? And then if they understand it and they still continue on, they can't argue the technical foul. So, but good stuff. I like 3 Ps.
Barman, what do you got? Kenny, what do you got? Nothing, crickets.
That's right.
B-
That's good. That's,
BK put it
yeah.
in the chat. He had to run.
Yeah, yeah.
Hey,
Okay,
Jeff,
we'll just,
can
oh,
you
go ahead,
hear me?
Kenny. Yeah,
Hey, Jeff, I don't have a question or anything. I just wanted to say thanks for hopping on and just say hi to you and all your good work that you've been doing. I've watched on like Facebook and stuff, so just wanted to say hi.
Appreciate it, Kenny. What's your last name, Kenny? Kenny who?
Sure, yeah, good.
Okay, got you, man. Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I got one question. Do they require you to be in physical shape too? To require some kind of, I see a lot of officials out there not ripping anybody that aren't in shape, can't get the spot. I always say if you can't officiate, don't get your ass in shape or don't officiate.
Yeah. No, we have to take a physical at the beginning of the year. That's all we have to do to make sure we're not going to die on the floor. But you're right. There are some that are maybe a little bit less out of shape or less in shape than others. But also, it's pretty hard for a 55-year-old man to be in the same shape as a 25-year-old man. Those things just aren't going to happen. I think as you get older throughout, you get more experience. Obviously, you want to stay in shape ultimately because you want to be healthy and you want to be able to get the spots. But you're just not going to be able to compete to a 25-year-old man or woman for that matter.
mhm.
So no requirements. I wish they had one requirement, and I don't understand why they don't do this. And everyone should have to do it, whether you're a high school official or NCAA official. The first test you should pass is a vision test.
Yeah,
Why are we not proving that we have 20/20 vision, even if it is corrected? We should be proving that.
yeah,
We have. It doesn't make any sense to me because there's so many people that maybe don't go to eye doctors, and they just they just go about their business, and I'll just keep on going. So I think what would be wrong with that? I think that'd be smart.
so we got a question in the chat from Adam. He said, what camps do you have to go to try out for the Big Ten?
So it's called it's Patty Broderick, and it's All American Officiating, I think it is. You just got to search a Patty Broderick, camp, and it'll come right up. It might be America's Best, maybe, or something like that. America's Best Officiating Camp. She has some in Milwaukee, some in Indianapolis. 3 or 4 times. So prepare to spend every bit of $500 just to get in the camp, and then whatever hotel and food and things like that you might need.
And is it a teaching camp or is it just a trial camp?
Well, they say they're teaching, yes, but ultimately everyone's there to be trying out. I will say this: I'm a firm believer. A lot of people do not agree with this, which is normal for me, Ben. People don't agree with how I think, but if you have the time and the money, and you want to go to a camp, then you go to camp. That's all there is to it. Don't wait until someone says you're ready, because I believe if you go whatever in 2023 and you're like, man, I just started working college basketball, I don't know if I'm ready, and you go there and you fall straight on your face and you don't do very good, and you go back to next year and you got a little bit better, guess what they just saw? They saw growth. They saw you get better. If you wait till you think you're ready, that 5, 6, 8-year window, whatever that is, okay, I got all my ducks in a row, I am ready. And you go and you make a little bit of an impression, but not a real big impression. Then you go the next year, obviously your growth isn't going to be that much from year 7 to 8 as it is from 1 to 3. So they get a chance to see you grow and see you get way better than seeing from 6 to 8 opposed to 1 to 3.
So if someone feels they're ready right now and they go try out, what are the chances they get picked up in their first year? Or is it something where you gotta go many times and be seen many
No,
times?
I think many people get picked up in their first year. I think it happens a lot because just like high school assigners are gonna hire people. They need people. It's really gonna depend on your location, whether you get picked up in the first year or not. Because if you get someone who lives in Chicago and there's a lot of games, but there's also a lot of officials, you may or may not get picked up. But you go and you're in South Dakota and there's four schools in South Dakota and 10 officials, guess what? You might get hired. So it all depends where you're at geographically. And I often accredit a lot of my success, excuse me, was the second year I worked Division I. I had my schedule picked up substantially my second year in Division I, and that was because 4 people from the Midwest retired.
Just dumb
They
luck.
retired.
Circumstance.
Yeah, they retired. They had, 70, 80 games apiece. So 300 games need to be filled. While Jeff Cross can do 20, 40 of those. So there we go.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
We got Christopher Preston. How many games do you do in a year?
Right around 70. Yeah.
Mhm.
60 to 70 games a year.
Oh, that's crazy. I remember you and Chad saying on your podcast that the easiest thing you do is call a game.
I would say it is true. I think the easiest part of my job is the actual referee. Because if you think about it, it only lasts 2 hours. That's it. That's it.
Flights. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to do everything else between booking my flights, booking my rental car, getting game reports in, all that stuff, plus be a husband, plus get to the next game and plus do all things. The 2 hours is the easy part. It's the absolute, I don't want to say, it's not easy. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to say that it's simple, but out of all the things, it can be the less stressful.
Well, I just was having a conversation with someone just yesterday about the easiest part. Like they had a hectic weekend with their kids and tournaments and wherever they got to go and whatever, yada, yada, yada. And they were like, man, I'm just so glad I'm at work on Monday. Just kind of like how you probably are, like the hustle and bustle of the fishing. Oh, I get to ref this game for 2 hours. This is awesome,
Yeah, I don't have to check my phone. I don't have emails coming in. I don't have texts coming in. All this stuff. I don't have my wife calling me, hey, are you going to be home? When are you coming home next? So yeah, it's you got 10 people to worry about on the floor, your 2 partners and a couple coaches. It goes a lot smoother.
Yeah.
Hey,
Aaron, do you have something?
Go ahead, Ben. Sorry. I had a
Go
question.
ahead, Alex. I thought someone was talking. Yep, you go ahead.
No, thanks for jumping on, Jeff. I always love listening to you talk and working my way through the podcast. There's a lot of episodes there. What is your favorite part about ref in Division I?
Well, outside the checks, right? The checks
outside
are
the checks.
Really nice. I think probably it's twofold, right? The towns I get to see that I wouldn't see, like I'm going to Pittsburgh tomorrow, so I'll get a chance to be in a town that I would never do. I would never say, hey, let's just drop everything and go to Pittsburgh. So I get a chance to see those types of towns. And I get a chance to be, in arenas that Hall of Fame people have been in. I go to Indiana, Bobby Knight, Hall of Famer, Indiana State, Hall of Fame players that played there. And I'm on the same floor that they're on. So I think that's pretty cool that I can be in the same building that history was made in. So those are the 2 things I think are the coolest thing about my job.
All right, guys, just in hope and fear that we're going to get cut off like we did in the last meeting. We're going to say goodnight to everybody unless someone has a last second question. Otherwise, Jeff, thank you very much. Does anyone have anything else to close the meeting?
You can put it in a chat, my email, jeffcross22@gmail.com if they got any questions. Jeffcross22.
And we'll send out an email tomorrow with this recording, Jeff's email, the link to the podcast, all that fun stuff.
There you go. Good.
Thanks, Jeff.
Appreciate
you. Everyone, have a beautiful evening, Jeff. Have a great game tomorrow.
Hope so, man. Hope so.
Everyone have a beautiful night and hug the one you love.
Right,
thanks, Jeff.
See you, man. Bye-bye.